I'm curious, Tungavidya, where'd you get that melody? Govinda? Devi Dasi. Who's that? Some Mataji in China? From Hong Kong? Anyway, you tell me later. She'll tell me later. She has a lot of melodies. We went to a yoga studio program, and she sang a melody that I thought no one would be able to follow because it was so complex, and everyone could follow it. Do you remember? Tungavidya, do you remember? Was that a traditional Chinese melody, just singing Hare Krishna to a traditional Chinese melody? Oh, I was curious. Very nice melody. We made an attempt to visit the Chandabhaga temple, and Krishna had a different idea. Poor fellows with that loud amplification system, they must be deaf by the end of the event. Or maybe they're deaf already, that's why they had to make the volume so high. So loud. So we spent some time in the middle part of the day going through something that was a little delicate, a little complex, about the spiritual Durga and the other one, the one in charge of Durga, the prison, material prison warden. I'll say it. When I was in college, I read a popular book at the time. The author's name was Ken Kesey, and the title of the book was One Flew Over a Cuckoo's Nest. Cuckoo, cuckoo. One flew over a cuckoo's nest. I didn't understand it at the time until I became a devotee. He was just writing a book, just like Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. Popular books and classic books are just simply rewrites of things that are from Scripture. The Cuckoo's Nest had a prison warden who was a lady, and someone was in prison and they wanted to get out of prison, and the prison warden lady was too tough, they couldn't get out of prison, and this and that and the other thing. And it was a living entity trying to get out of material life. But the prison warden, Durga, was too tough. He couldn't get out. Anyway, To get out of material existence, once you're in material existence, it's very difficult. One can try elevation through fruitive activities, but that doesn't get you out of material existence. Or one can try to get out of material existence by denying fruitive activities, trying for impersonal liberation, but that's also illusion. Because desire is concomitant or with the soul. Very difficult. So the process, then, Krishna gives a very simple solution, is devotional service. Utilizing whatever it is that you presently have in service to the source of that which you presently have. And that way, detachment from the spirit of enjoying those things, and instead the actual enjoyer enjoying those things that are his. Otherwise, you're a thief. I was just listening to a morning walk conversation. Prabhupada was really into it. Renouncer, it's not his to renounce. And the enjoyer is a thief. He just went, over it and over it and over it and back and forth and over it. The real solution is devotion, and there isn't another solution. Anyway, so we spent some time discussing about Durga and the spiritual Durga and the material one. So I thought we would spend some time a little more delicate, and a little more difficult, a little more intricate, and that is the consort of Durga is Lord Shiva. We're going to speak about Shiva Tattva. Now, Vaishnava acharyas have said there are two topics that are very complex and difficult to explain. The two are Guru Tattva and the other is Shiva Tattva. So I'm going to make a very simple attempt to explain Shiva Tattva, although the topic is very complex. And it has relationship to Krishna and Dwaraka because of the Chandabhaga temple, where it is said that's the deity that the pure devotee family of the Yadus worshipped. They also had Vishnu temples, yes? We heard that twice already. When Vishvakarma established Dwaraka, along with the roads and the parks and the lakes and the trees and everything, the homes of the residents of Dwaraka had so many elements to them, but one of them was that each of the homes had a Vishnu temple. Each home. Just like many of you have in your homes, an altar, Vishnu temple. So they were, in fact, Vaishnavas. They worshipped Narayana as the Supreme Lord, but they also had some understanding of the internal potency, Durga. So, wherever there is the potency, there's the potent. And just as when Krishna established Dwaraka and became situated there himself, naturally Rukmini had to be there too. And so that arrangement was made. So similarly, Lord Shiva has his consort, known by different names according to features of her, but Parvati, Sati. Going to have a brief description of her. So we'll start with something simple, and then we'll get a little less than simple. The starting with something simple is what it describes in Nectar Devotion. The relationship between Krishna and Lord Shiva. As you know, Nectar Devotion says that Krishna has 64 qualities. Chapter 21. It's very simple. There's the first 50 of the 64 qualities the living entities have in a very tiny degree. And then there's another 5, another 5, and another 4. So 50 plus 14 makes 64. The next 5 qualities, which living entities do not have, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva have. But they don't have them in full. Lord Vishnu has them in full. They have them less than full, which is interesting, especially when you hear the qualities. And Lord Shiva has them in a greater degree than Brahma has them, and neither of them have them in the same degree as Vishnu, who has another 5, and then Krishna has another 4, makes 64. So listen to this. These are 5 qualities that Lord Shiva and Brahma have partially. Changeless. Well, that's the soul, right? In Bhagavad Gita. All cognizant, partially. Ever fresh, partially. Satchitananda, body, partially. Possessing all mystic perfections, partially. Not in full. So rather than detailing all of this, partially means they live such a long time that, like eternal, sat. And they have such knowledge, it seems like chit, but it's not fully. And ananda, they have happiness that supersedes the happiness of the living entity, but not the fullness of the happiness of the personality of Godhead. Changeless, almost. They live for a very long time, etc. Almost, partially. In Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's commentary on this verse, he discusses, from a Samhita rather, he discusses what I just said. The main difference between Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma is that Lord Shiva has these 50 qualities and the next 5 qualities to a greater degree than Brahma has. But not as full as Lord Vishnu has. That should be clear. So now I'm going to read a similar description. This is from Brihat Bhagavatamrita, Part 1, printed by the BBT in English. And the Part 1 is Gopakumar, a cowherd boy from Vrindavan, is searching, Narada Muni is on a quest. He's searching for the greatest recipient of Krishna's mercy. And chapter after chapter, as he goes to different people and saying, oh, you're the greatest recipient of the mercy of the Lord. And they say, no, 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 here's my disqualifications. But if you want to know somebody that is qualified, so-and-so. And he describes their glories. So Narada goes to that person and sees them doing those glorious things and says, they're the greatest recipient of the mercy of the Lord. And they say, no, 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 here's my disqualification. But if you want to know who is really receiving the mercy of the Lord, there's so-and-so. And it just keeps going like that. It's like, a ladder of those who are receiving the mercy of the Lord in a fantastic way. So one of the places he goes is Brahmaloka. And he sees Brahma engaging in what Brahma does in Brahmaloka. And he says, you're the greatest recipient of the mercy of the Lord. And he says, no, 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 here's my disqualification. One of them is, I'm always afraid of death. People say, I have this long life, but I know death is coming, and I'm afraid. And then other disqualifications he attributes to himself. Then he says, but if you really want to know the recipient of the mercy of the Lord, you should go see Lord Shiva. Now here's Brahma, who has 5 extra qualities that living entities don't have, but has them in a lesser degree than Lord Shiva. And here's what he says about Lord Shiva. It starts with, he's well known for being a very dear associate of Krishna. So Brahma is a post, and Lord Shiva is a position of being very, very, very dear. Why is he dear? Vaishnavanam yata Shambhu, because of his devotion to the personality of Godhead. Lord Shiva is a Vaishnav. He's the greatest of Vaishnav because of his devotion to Vishnu. And he has such attachment for Vishnu that he has complete detachment for anything material. In fact, he just ridicules materialists like me. I have all this opulence in Brahmaloka. And just to ridicule me, he does all these, things that just show he doesn't care at all about external formality. How does he dress? Well, he doesn't. And what is he, instead of clothes, he smears his body with ashes from crematorium, and instead of ornaments, he wears a necklace of bones and skulls of humans. And he goes around dancing like a madman, not caring at all for external formality. He's trying to hide, conceal his qualities, but he can't, because he's so exalted he can't. He carries on his head the Ganges water. And he was requested to do that, and he was worshipped by the demigods and even Vishnu for that nice service that he did. He swallowed the ocean of poison, and then his throat became blue, and that became like a special decoration of his greatness. He can't hide his greatness. He's in his Vaishnava position, he's able to grant liberation for persons who are worshippers of Vishnu, and persons like myself, Lord Brahma. I wish to receive that position in the spiritual world. Whenever he's in difficulty, then Vishnu comes to his rescue, and he cites some examples. Vrikasura. Some of you know the story of Vrikasura. We'll hear the detail of it, but quick summary, he was an asura named Vrika, and he went here and there wanting to know who will give me really quick benedictions. Narada Muni said, Lord Shiva. So he went to perform a yajna in the forest, started a sacrificial fire, and as is traditional, you make offerings into the sacrificial fire, so he started cutting off pieces of his body and throwing it into the fire. This went on for 6 days. He wanted to see Lord Shiva. So then he decided, I'll cut off my head and maybe he'll come. Then he won't be able to see. He wasn't very intelligent. The Lord Shiva saw him with a knife to his throat, and he showed himself and said, you don't have to do that. I'm Ashutosh, I'm easily satisfied. He touched him and his body became whole again. And he asked him, well, what's the benediction you want anyway? And he said, I want the benediction that whoever's head I touch, it breaks into 10 pieces. Okay. The benediction is yours. Now I want to test it out. Bring your head over here. He wanted to touch Lord Shiva's head. And Lord Shiva started going here and there, and Vrikasura was chasing him. Lord Shiva went to the abode of Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu saw him coming, knew what was going on, so he approached Vrikasura in the form of a poor brahmana and said, my dear sir, he spoke with him anyway. Lord Vishnu saved him. He said, I don't trust this Lord Shiva. You know what he does? This and that, and the other thing. Who knows if he even has the power to give you this benediction? I have a suggestion. Why don't you test it out first? Go ahead, just touch your head, see if it happens. That's a good idea, yeah. So Vishnu protected Lord Shiva in the case of Vrikasura. Mura, the demon Mura, received some power from Lord Shiva, and with that power from Lord Shiva, he began to torment Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva went to Lord Vishnu finished Mura. We heard that pastime. Sometimes even Lord Vishnu takes the position of the worshipper of Lord Shiva in order to honor his devotee, just like Krishna likes to honor his devotee Arjuna and have Arjuna do things, etc. Parashuram, one of the 10 principal avatars, worshipped Lord Shiva. We know the story from Ramayana, at least not the Valmiki Ramayana, it's not there in Valmiki Ramayana, but the other Ramayana, popular one. Lord Ram worships Lord Shiva. Not in Valmiki Ramayana. He goes on, Brahma is honoring the exalted nature of Lord Shiva. And Brahma is the head of our sampradaya, and he respects Lord Shiva. There's a pastime in the 4th canto of the Bhagavatam, which I'm going to summarize quickly, where Brahma, the head of all the demigods, goes to Kailash to pacify Lord Shiva, who has become very angry when Sati, the wife of Lord Shiva, ignited her body in a trance of mystic meditation. And the story goes like this. Canto 4, chapter 2 is where it starts. Summary. Maitreya, we heard about Maitreya. Maitreya, we'll hear more about him, but Maitreya was present when Krishna spoke Uddhava Gita to Uddhava. We have Bhagavad Gita where Krishna speaks Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, and then in the Bhagavatam, more chapters are more elaborate and more detailed and very elevated, because Arjuna was a Kshatriya and Uddhava was a minister, and very, 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 very intelligent. He wasn't a warrior, he was an intelligent minister. And dearmost, outside of Vrindavan, dearmost personality to Krishna. Anyway, Maitreya was present, and Maitreya was told when he heard Uddhava Gita from Krishna, Krishna said, very soon, Vidura is going to come. And when Vidura comes, you enlighten him in the subject matters that you've heard from me, to Uddhava. So that's what he does. Vidura finds Maitreya, and their conversation begins in Canto 3 and continues in Canto 4. Maitreya asks, you just mentioned something about Sati, who is another name of Durga, the consort of Lord Shiva. Sati was the daughter, beloved daughter of Daksha. Now, Daksha was a direct son of Lord Brahma. But the first of the sons of Lord Brahma was the 4 Kumaras. And then when they said that they didn't want to engage in becoming Prajapatis or creators of offspring to fill up the universe, the next appearance was Lord Shiva, who appeared from the brow of Lord Brahma in his moment of anger. Lord Shiva appeared, and Shiva divided into 11 Rudras and started tearing up the universe he just created, and even started attacking Brahma. Anyway, after that, the first Manu was created, Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa, both from the body of Lord Brahma, and some sages, 10 sages plus 1, and one of them was Daksha. And Daksha became appointed by Brahma as the chief amongst the Prajapatis. I'm chief. By appointment. And he became proud. And so he did too many yagyas. And he was proud of how many yagyas and different, this yagya, that yagya, the other yagya. I'm good. He was filled with pride. One of his offspring as a Prajapati was Sati. Brahma, though he is the original father of Lord Shiva and the original father of these sages, including Prajapati, including Daksha, Brahma told him, your daughter, Sati, should marry Lord Shiva. So, reluctantly, proud, Daksha agreed. So this Canto 4, Chapter 2 narration gets the response from Vidura asked the question of Maitreya, so Maitreya then says, long ago in another millennium, there was a big sacrifice held for all the sages and everybody was invited. Lord Brahma was present, Lord Shiva was present, and into the assembly that everyone, he came in last because he was like the VIP, Daksha came. Everybody stood, because that's Vedic culture. When a respected person comes in, you stand and offer them respect. Except for 2 people in the assembly, his father and his elder brother. Now, Lord Brahma offered some words of appreciation to his son, Daksha. But Lord Shiva was seated in trance, meditating on Supersoul. So he didn't. Daksha didn't take that reality into consideration. he lost it and started vilifying publicly in front of the entire assembly of learned people. Lord Shiva is this and that and the other thing. The very same things that Brahma spoke about in Brihat Bhagavatamrita as being ways that Lord Shiva was trying to hide his glories, Daksha was taking it as, something disrespectful, and I don't have any respect for this person, he's this and he's that and the other thing, without listing them. He's already taken a position of being subordinate to me because he married my daughter, so he's my son-in-law. I'm his superior. I'm the head Prajapati dude for the whole universe. And he's not even standing to offer words. He doesn't have any etiquette. Then he uttered a curse. This lowest amongst the demigods, Lord Shiva, will not get any of the offerings from the sacrifice. All the other demigods, yes. Lord Shiva, no. And in a huff, he left the assembly. Big mistake. Don't offend Lord Shiva. Big mistake. Nandishwara, one of the chief assistants of Lord Shiva, he stood up and he counter-cursed Daksha, who wasn't even there anymore, but he counter-cursed all of the Brahmanas, saying, you so-called Brahmanas, you're just attached to the flowery words of the Vedas. You know what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita about that? He didn't refer to Bhagavad Gita. Said, you Brahmanas are just going to become all fallen and just be interested in material enjoyment in this life and in elevation in the next life and continue in repeated birth and death, lifetime after lifetime, lose all your Brahminical strength. You'll even start eating all uneatable things. You lose all your power of discrimination. Forget it, you guys are losers. Yeah, confirmed. Brighu did a counter curse to his counter curse. And uttering Vedic mantras, he said, you followers of Lord Shiva, da-da-da-da-da-da, you're going to all become atheists. Lose sight of Lord Vishnu because of your offensiveness to a Brahmana. And in the big uproar, Lord Shiva was disgusted by both parties, and he just got up and left. That's how it started. The enmity started, at least externally started. But what was the reason? Lord Shiva tells Sati later what the reason is. But what happened was, some time passed, Lord Daksha did many other yagas, then he had another real big one, and he invited everybody except one person. Well, two persons. His daughter and his son-in-law. He invited everybody else. Purposely, he didn't invite both of them. And the description of the following chapters, Sati is seeing all these heavenly personalities flying by in their vimanas, all dressed up, going to a party. Woo, woo, I want to go to the party. See all my relatives and we'll have a good time. Woo, woo, woo. Lord Shiva puts his foot down. He doesn't say no. She doesn't say, I'm going. She said, wouldn't it be nice if? Lord Shiva said, it wouldn't be nice if. And he gave his reasons. There's some good reasons. I'll just mention a few. When people become blinded by pride, nourished by that quality of pride, all other bad qualities also come. They become callous. Same as what Narada speaks about, Nalakuvera and Manigriva. When pride enters the heart, you become very hard in heart, and you can do anything that hurts anybody, and you can't see straight. You can't see persons that are saintly and understand their saintliness. You just lose that capacity. That's your father, Daksha. He's too proud. And he's envious. He sees that I have my intelligence directly guided by the Supreme Lord Vishnu. He doesn't have that capacity, so he's envious of me. Just like people are envious of Vishnu. He's envious of me because of my relationship with Vishnu. Then he explains why he didn't get up at that previous yajna. He says, this is a nice point, when educated people offer respects to one another, it's because of the presence of Supersoul within. I mentioned this earlier. I'm always meditating on Supersoul, and at that particular time, I was just in a trance of meditation on Supersoul, and so I wasn't even noticing that he had come into the assembly, but he was expecting that, respect goes to the body, and you're supposed to respect him because he's a Brahmana body person. But it really doesn't go to the Brahman, it goes to the Supersoul, because Brahmana means one who is absorbed in Brahman. I was absorbed in Brahman. I wasn't disrespecting him, I was respecting the Supersoul, the Supreme Lord. But because he's all proud, he can't see that. One should not go to the houses, this is a practical one, of persons who have disturbed minds, who will look at guests with a crooked mind, raised brows, and angry glances, even if they're relatives, persons whose minds are disturbed. And how do you get a disturbed mind? Well, desire material happiness. You get a disturbed mind. Happiness through bringing the senses to sense objects, and your mind is disturbed. And the personality of Godhead, the real happiness, is forgotten, covered completely. Don't go to such homes. Yes, they're your relatives, but look at this person in his condition. So he didn't say no, but he said, you'll be sorry if you go. So because he didn't say no, she still wanted to go. And it's the next verse says, she became restless. She started to go for the door with a happy look, and then she came back knowing he doesn't want me to go. And then she'd get a sad face, and then she'd get a happy face and start to go and then sit down. She was too disturbed. She couldn't restrain herself, she went. Associates of Lord Shiva accompanied her for her protection, knowing it's not going to be a pretty picture. So when she entered the assembly, her father didn't receive her, the guests didn't receive her in fear of, the anger of Daksha. They showed her some respect because she wasn't invited. She's a party crasher. The daughter of the host. Party crasher. So she understood right away. No one spoke a word to her. No one offered any kind of courtesy or respect. She understood it's disrespect towards me is because of disrespect to Lord Shiva. These people are offenders to Lord Shiva. Not just he's my husband, but he's Lord Shiva. So, in a loud voice, purposely so everyone could hear it, she spoke about this behavior, this attitude that was exhibited by others because of the attitude of her father, and she disclosed, the abominable attitude of her father, and said, I'm disgusted having any association with you. And the only association that I have with you is this body, so I'm going to give up my body. She was a yogi in addition. Some of you are yoga teachers. So she sat down in a yoga posture and she fixed her life airs, the Udana and Upana, consolidated them into one, and then merged them with the Samana air, and then raised that air through different chakras of her body up to the top of her head, and her mind fixed on both fire and air, her body burst into flames. Don't teach that in your yoga class. But it's possible. And everyone was shocked. And when the associates of Lord Shiva saw that that Sati had just given up her body, they started attacking the Brahmanas. As they started attacking the Brahmanas, Brighu quickly did a yajna with mantras and produced ribhus, thousands of entities that went having a big battle with the devotees, the followers of Lord Shiva. It was a mess. Narada Muni went quickly to Lord Shiva, who hadn't attended. By the way, Brahma also didn't attend because he knew what was going to happen. Very inauspicious. When Lord Shiva understood what happened, he became very angry. He took a strand of hair from his head with a mantra, dashed it to the ground, created this huge demon, Virabhadra. Up into the sky with many arms, each carrying weapons, finished them. The personification of Lord Shiva's anger is Virabhadra. He entered into the assembly, the whole sky became dark. Everyone was wondering, what's happening? And then Virabhadra appeared on the scene, roaring and smashing people and this and that. He grabbed a hold of Daksha and tried choking him and ripping his head off his body, but it wouldn't come off. So then he saw a chopping block that they were going to use for a sacrifice of an animal, took the chopper, put his neck on the chopper and chopped off his head. Bloody mess. Everyone went screaming in all different directions. End of the yajna. Lord Shiva went back to Mount Kailash, peacefully sitting under a huge banyan tree, his anger completely gone. The devas, the demigods, approached Lord Brahma, please do something. So they approached Lord Brahma. And Brahma came to Kailash, this beautiful description of what it looks like in Kailash. And he said some very beautiful words. Appreciating, you're the greatest of all Vaishnavas. You can't please Vishnu this way. Please put Daksha's head back on. And the Bhaga, whose eyes you poked out, give him his sight back. So he can see the offerings that are being made, and the one you knocked his teeth out, give him his teeth back and, fix the problem you made. Lord Shiva gave him one of those. Yes, yes. And said, I'll give Daksha a goat's head. Because that was one of the curses that Nandishwara said. That this offender, Brahmana, so-called Brahmana Daksha, is going to get a goat's head. You wait and see. So that's what happened. He got a goat's head. And the other people, he can see through Maitri. He can see the offerings that way. And the one that had his teeth knocked out, he can eat through his disciples. It's kind of a compromise. Didn't give him a set of teeth back. He can eat through his disciples. So Lord Shiva came back and put on the goat's head. Daksha realized, I made a big mistake. Daksha, he apologized to Lord Shiva. And this is important. Lord Shiva accepted his apology, but, so the reaction was now taken care of, but the tendency wasn't taken care of. The tendency was still there. And the narration goes on that Daksha then, in the Manu of Chakshusha Manu, he took his birth again, Daksha part 2. And he had the same mentality. And then later he offended Narada Muni. So, that's about the relationship between Lord Shiva and Sati. So Sati, she's the associate of Lord Shiva. So what happened was, although she gave up that body, she, by arrangement of the Supreme Lord, received another body as Parvati, or Girija, the daughter of a mountain. Parvat, it means mountain. And Menaka. So, then there's this nice story of how they were again brought together, Lord Shiva and Parvati. Because she's Lord Shiva's consort. Now, that was the easy part. Now it's going to get a little more complicated. Because Shiva Tattva is complex. Do you remember the verse? Golokanamni nijadamni tale chatasya Devi maheshu haridama suteshu teshu Te te prabhava niyatash vihitash chayena Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. So mentioned there is Devi Dham, that's where Durga resides, at least the worldly one. And then above that is Mahesh Dham. In the commentary of that verse, Bhaktisiddhanta writes, next above Devi Dham is Shiva Dham, one portion of which, so it's got two parts, Mahakala Dham is enveloped in darkness, interpenetrating or above this portion of Shiva Dham, there shines Sada Shiva Loka, full of light. So down here, Mahakala Dham and Sada Shiva Loka, full of great light. So that chart that I showed you at the very beginning, we don't have a projector now, but there's the universe and its 7 coverings, and above the coverings, beyond the 7 coverings, is Mahesh Dham. And that Mahesh Dham has a lower and an upper region, and the lower region is Mahakala, and it's in the painting, it's dark. It's like a cloud with a dark portion below, and the bright portion above. And the bright portion above is Sadashivaloka. So, we normally, at least, the worshippers of Lord Shiva as a demigod, where does he reside? Kailash. Where's Kailash? Kailash is part of the fabulous garden area of Kuvera, because Kuvera, treasure of heaven, has lots of property. And part of that lots of property is he has a nice garden, and he worshipped Lord Shiva so nicely. Lord Shiva was pleased and said, what benediction you would like? He said, just you stay here with me in my garden. So Lord Shiva stays there. Mount Kailash. That's where Lord Shiva went after the counter-cursing and all of that bloody mess. He went to Mount Kailash. So that's one of his residences. In this Devi Dham, he has a residence. But he has a residence above Devi Dham, also called Shiva Dham. And that Shiva Dham, we heard it has two parts. Sadashivaloka and then this Mahakalapur. In the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 12, this Mahakala Dham is also, this is where it gets really complicated, it's at the bottom of the universe. What? Yeah, at the bottom of the universe. Dark, bottom of the universe. Because remember when Lord Shiva appeared from the brow of Lord Brahma because he was angry because the four Kumaras wouldn't create offspring? And that Lord Shiva expanded into 11 Rudras and they started tearing up the universe, including attacking Brahma. Brahma approached Lord Shiva, from whom the 11 Rudras came, and said, tell these fellows to stop it. I mean, the universe just got started. They're tearing it up. Tell them, go meditate. You can go to Mahakalapur, the bottom of the universe. And when it's time, I'll give them they can do it. They can destroy the universe. So they're at the bottom of the universe. That's one of the Mahakalapurs, bottom of this universe. And then there's Kailash in the upper regions, the heavenly regions of within the universe. And then there's beyond the coverings of the universe, where this Sadashivaloka that has a lower region that's also Mahakalapur, and Sadashivaloka that's full of light. See, it's complicated. And then there's another place. That's the spiritual planet where Sadashiva resides. That's 5 places. Because he's a complicated personality. Shiva Tattva is complex. And Shiva has consorts. So she manifests herself to assist him in different ways in all these different places. That's what she does. That's his Shakti. In Canto 10, Chapter 89. Chapter 89 of Canto 10 is a scene from Dwaraka where there's a Brahmana. This is almost the end of the 10th canto. A Brahmana in Dwaraka has his sons. They're born, they don't die, they just disappear. One after the next, after the next, after the next, after the next. He starts criticizing Ugrasena. What kind of king are you? You can't even protect a Brahmana. And this so-called Krishna, full of all opulences and all that stuff. Why he doesn't take care of the Brahmanas? He's favorable to the Brahmanas. So he starts criticizing. Arjuna is there. He hears the criticism. He goes to the Brahmana and says, "My dear Brahmana, I'm Arjuna, mighty armed Arjuna, you know, you're from Bhagavad Gita, mighty armed Arjuna. And I can protect you. I take a vow. If your next child disappears this way, I'll enter into fire." Mighty armed Arjuna takes a vow. He takes extreme vows like that, knowing that Krishna will protect him. So the Brahmana went forward. Time for the child to be born. Arjuna comes with his arrows. He creates a house, mystical house that nobody can enter. The child is born, and then the child disappears. Brahmana comes out of this mystical house and said, "Just see, what kind of hero are you? I'll find the child, I promise you. I'll look here and there." And he looks here and there. Can't find the child. He builds a fire and he's about to enter into the fire. Krishna says, "What are you doing?" "I took a vow." "I know where the child is." "Oh, let's go get the child and bring the child back to the Brahmana." So they get on a mystical chariot and start going to the abode of Mahavishnu, who is in this outer region beyond the universe. It's a really far out description. They pass through the layers of the coverings of the universe into the Brahma Jyoti. They have to close their eyes, it's so bright. And they come to the abode of Lord Mahavishnu. As they're entering into this abode of Lord Vishnu, going in that direction, they see this Mahakalapur place. It's mentioned, chapter 89, canto 10. Which is also referred to in Brihat Bhagavatamrita. It's called the abode of liberation. In Brihat Bhagavatamrita, when Brahma is glorifying Lord Shiva, he said the residents in his abode are all liberated souls. But it's a different kind of liberation. They're not entitled to go to Vaikuntha from there because they have become attached to Lord Shiva, but not yet the real gift that Lord Shiva wants to give is Vishnu Bhakti. So they go to that place instead of Vaikuntha. I told you it'd get a little complex. So now here's Prabhupada's writing in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 21, text 54, for you note takers. Chapter 21, text 54, purport. Quote, "When a living entity is liberated from Devidam but does not know the opulence of Haridam, he is placed in Mahakaladam, which is between Haridam and Devidam, Maheshdam, Mahakaladam. The liberated soul does not get an opportunity to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead there, semicolon. Therefore, although Mahesh Dham is Lord Shiva's Dham, and above Devi Dham, it is not the spiritual world. The spiritual world begins with Haridam, or Vaikuntha. Paragraph. Next, Maheshdam, after Maheshdam comes Sada Shiva Loka. That's a spiritual planet. Lord Shiva is thus on both sides of the Brahma Jyoti. On the lower side, Mahakala, he is Bhutanath, the leader of the atheistic class of men, while on the higher side, Sadashivaloka, he worships Sankarshana. through singing, dancing, and other pastimes. He's a very colorful personality. There's many aspects to him, some of which are more complete, some of which are less complete. And he does different services for Lord Vishnu in each of those places because he's a Vaishnava. Now, how does it, to add a little color to this complexity, there's another verse in Brahma Samhita. If you know the verse, you can sing it along with me. Shiram yata dadi vikara vishesha yogat sanjayate nahitatak pratigasti hetaho yat shambhutam apitata samupaiti karyat govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Here it refers to Shambhu, Lord Shiva, who is yata tata. He's compared to milk in touch with the souring agent like tamarind or something acidic, put in hot milk. You ladies, you know how to do this. You get milk warm or hot. You put in some tamarind or some lemon or some souring agent and it curdles. So what's curd? It's nothing but a product of milk, but it's no longer milk. You can't make the curd go back and become milk again. So, tata. Similarly, Lord Shiva is like that. He's the personality of Godhead transformed by something, an agent, that makes him no longer Vishnu. But he's not, it's a tattva. It's not once upon a time he was Vishnu and then something strange happened and he became not Vishnu anymore. It's a tattva. It's a description of, as in this world such and such happens, so similarly there's a differentiation between Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva like this. Now, there's a non-distinction because they're milk and a milk product. And the subservient person, Lord Shiva, sees himself as the servant of the personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Now, what is that? Have you ever wondered, what's that tamarind thing? Yata, tata. So that we know how to make from milk curd, dahi. What is that distinction, specific distinction that differentiates Vishnu from Shiva? Well, Bhaktisiddhanta gives it. I'll say it slowly. It's 3 parts. The said adulterating principle is constituted of a combination of the stupefying quality of the diluting energy, moha, to insert to a slight degree that bewildering influence of Maya contacts Lord Shiva. Not Lord Vishnu, because Lord Shiva directly consorts with this Chaya Devi, Lord Vishnu doesn't. So that contact is the stupefying, small amount, quality of the diluting energy. 2, the quality of non-plentitude. That's Bhaktisiddhanta's language. There's the plenary and there's the non-plenary. So Vishnu is plenary and the living entity is tiny. So a portion of that tininess, but not the fullness of the tininess of the jiva. Got it? Stupefying influence of Maya, the portion of the non-plentitude, quality, small amount, and a slight degree of the ecstatic and cognitive principle of the spiritual potency. So Sat and Chit, to some degree he has that, but not in full. Vishnu has Satchitananda. Krishna is Satchitananda Vigraha. We know that from Brahma Samhita. To some degree he has that, but not to a full degree. And that's the agent, or the adulterating principle, that makes Lord Shiva Dahi, or Lord Shiva Shiva Tattva, distinct from Vishnu Tattva. If you want to go to Goloka, we're here, I think, because we have some aspiration to go to Goloka. Bhaktisiddhanta writes that one has to be fully under the influence of the spiritual cognitive potency, joined with the essence of ecstatic energy. In other words, you need Radha's mercy, and you need the knowledge that naturally comes from being engaged in devotional service. The knowledge, the transcendental knowledge type of knowledge. In order to enter into unalloyed devotional service, and then you can enter into Goloka. And not otherwise. Almost done. In the process of creation, because the Srimad Bhagavatam is a Mahapurana. Mahapurana means that there's 10 topics, and one of those 10 topics is Shrishti, creation. We use that with Durga. Shrishti, Sthiti, Pralaya, Sadhana, Shakti, Rekha. So Shrishti means creation. So one of the topics in the Bhagavatam is, how does a universe get created? Very fascinating subject matter. Exhaustively, kind of like exhaustively, it's described in Canto 3. In such detail, you just want to go to the stories. I've had enough of this detail. So, but one of the things that's described is the appearance of false ego. Because you can't have material creation without false ego. You dissolve false ego, you don't have material existence anymore. That's what bhakti does. Bhakti has the potency to dissolve false ego. Yay! And the material mind. Yay! And without bhakti you can't. Oh, then it's struggle. Daivhi yeshu gunamayi. Mama maya durat ya 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 ya. It's very difficult. Bhakti is necessary. So for those that are averse to bhakti, they take birth in this world, and the first element that separates out of the pradhan is false ego. Prabhupada's purport, directly from the Bhagavatam. The creation of Rudra from between the eyebrows of Brahma as a result of Brahma's anger, generated from the mode of passion, partly touched by ignorance, is very significant. In Bhagavad Gita 3.37, the principle of Rudra is described. What's that? Krodha, anger, is the product of kama, lust. Kamesha, Krodesha, Rajo, Guna, Samudbhava. You know the verse? Some of you know the verse. Arjun wants to know from Krishna, what is it that forces one to do something even against your will? You want to do that and you do this. How does that happen? It happens by the force of the modes of nature that starts with contacting the mode of passion, and then comes really strong desire, kama, that later becomes anger. You're frustrated, the happiness didn't come. Uh-oh. Here comes a Sankirtan party on wheels. Yes? Maybe we should end. Anyway. When lust and hankering are unsatisfied, the element of krodha or anger appears, which is the formidable enemy of the conditioned soul, the most sinful and inimical passion is represented as ahankara, or the false egocentric attitude of thinking oneself to be all in all. Such egocentric attitude on the part of the conditioned soul, which is completely under the control of the material nature, is described in Bhagavad Gita as mudha, foolish. The egocentric attitude is manifestation of the Rudra principle. He's in charge of false ego. He's in charge of the mode of ignorance, and it's subset of, you got to be ignorant to buy into false ego program, the egocentric attitude. And once you bought into it, you can't shake loose. Get rid of it. It doesn't go away. Turn upside down, do handstands. It doesn't go away. False ego. Very stubborn. It's under the control of Lord Shiva. So what does Lord Shiva do? He worships Sankarshan. And we should also worship the personality of Godhead. And by that worship of the personality of Godhead, who is the source of everything, we can become free from that false ego, because it's our true ego, and light is stronger than darkness. So then Lord Shiva asks as our friend, as a Vaishnava, instead of one who keeps us, moving in false ego, assisted by Durga or the material Parvati. And so people approach them to get material benedictions, and they get more entangled in the complexities of material life and think, yay, now I'm happy. I got the stuff I wanted. Like Brikasura. But it brings unhappiness. So the real mercy of Lord Shiva and the real mercy of Parvati is to assist us in attaining shelter of Krishna. And they'll do that if that's the heart's aspiration. But where does that heart's aspiration generate from? From the association who have that in their heart. We need the association of devotees. Devotees. We need each other. And especially those devotees who are genuinely wanting that shelter in simply pleasing Krishna through all the complexities of life. And that's the topmost position of Lord Shiva. That's his real benediction. He wants to give that. But if other people want other things, he'll give those other things. Lord Vishnu doesn't like to do that. Vishnu says, I'm not such a fool. If I give something to people who want something, I'll do it in such a way they'll give up the desire to have that something. And instead I'll give them my association. I'll put my lotus feet in their heart, and they'll lose that desire for that something. That's what I'm going to do. Akama, sarvakamo va, moksha kama udaradi, tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. So, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he traveled in South India, he also visited temples of Lord Shiva, and he danced in ecstasy because he knew Lord Shiva is the giver of love for the personality of Godhead. He saw him in that way, just like the question that was asked earlier. If we go to the Chandrabhaga temple, seeing, oh, here's someone that gave me something material, that's how we'll see. Not the spiritual Durga, but if we approach as the spiritual Durga, as the residents of Dwaraka were doing, they wanted Krishna. And Krishna came, just like that. That material Durga acts as the giver of devotion to Krishna, if the mercy of a Vaishnava comes into our life. Isn't it a nice teaching? So sorry for the complexity, but Shiva Tattva is complex. And we should understand in that complexity, it's easy to get confused unless we have proper guidance in life in general, and where to repose the tendency to worship in particular. We need proper guidance for that. Otherwise, people get very confused. Part of the local story with Chandrabhaga temple is it was kind of, it's a little remote, and it wasn't even in good condition. Somebody renovated that place recently, you can tell. And then those local people say, this is more important than Dwaraka temple. And local people go, yeah, it's closer, it's more important. So we need to be guided properly. And then we won't get in the ditch. We can stay on the road to Krishna properly in the midst of all kinds of other things. This disciplic succession, hearing, receiving, and disciplic succession, so important. And then we can get the path to Krishna very clear. Okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.